So hello everybody. I hope you feel good this morning. Okay. So we continue the adventure of secondary metabolite. Okay, that's good. So this morning I wanted to start a new chapter of this lecture that it is more dedicated of how we can use different tools in order to engineering several pathway or part of the pathway in living systems, primarily in plants, but also we will see after in other type of organisms. So my purpose today is to show you how we can do so, to explain also several type of methodology that are currently used in laboratories in order to do this type of transformation. This metabolic pathway engineering system is supported by a wide range of technology that aim to modify, to control, to cut, to add what you want to do at the genome level of the cells, plant cells at the beginning, but also whatever the type of cells, including prokaryotic cells. So most of the organisms that are built by this methodology are pooled in the same general term as gene manipulation strategy. Okay, means that at this moment we want to modify the natural ability of a cell to produce several enzymes that are involved in the specialized metabolisms. So it's obvious that before starting any process, we need to have a complete knowledge of the biosynthetic pathway we target. Okay, so means that we need to know exactly what are the gene encoding the enzymes that are involved in this process. Because if one is missing, it could be difficult to do several things for engineered cell. We use lots of this of technology, not only to modify the ability of the plant organism to produce or to produce different or decrease or increase amount of specialized metabolite. But also what it is interesting is to know some elements that are naturally involved in the regulation of the own metabolic pathway expression. So also this type of element, in particular transcriptional factors, okay, could be also good target of gene modification in order to have another way to modulate expression of several metabolic pathways. So means that also we have to characterize and to identify several genes that are more involved in regulating the pathway instead of being part of the pathway. So what it is interesting also is to take in account that at this moment you have to modify one cell, but if this cell is not a single cell, such as the suspension cell culture, for example, but if it is a cell that could be part of an organism, you need to include also how these cells can interact with the others, and inside the cells also how the metabolic pathway could be localized, organized, and different things, because this could be taken account for the final efficient gene modification and expression of this modification to modulate specialized metabolite biosynthesis in the cell. Under the term of gene manipulation strategy, I say to you, it refers to a wide range of methodology, and we can classify this methodology in four type of strategy, four type of terms. So the first one concerns to the fact to up or to down regulation of particular metabolic pathway genes, or the genes that are responsible of controlling the rate limiting steps. So means that we want not to modify the quality of the metabolic that are produced, but the quantity of them, including obviously the intermediates. We can also have a strategy with multi-gene staking within the same chromosal vicinity. Means that we want to recreate specific artificial clusters for a metabolic pathway. That could be also a way to enhance some production. Targeting or blocking of branching pathway that interfere with the biosynthesis of the desired active product. It is exactly what we have also discussed a lot. You have seen that one metabolic pathway is never alone, is always branched or linked with other parts of metabolic pathway, means that some intermediates of the metabolic pathway you want to control something can be used, okay, for initiate or to be part of other metabolic pathway. To avoid this non-desiderated use of intermediates, we can act also on this parallel branch in order to stop them, to reorient the flux of the metabolite or the intermediate metabolite you want, okay, in the good pathway. So it means that you are not obliged to see only your pathway, but also the environment in which this pathway is occurring. And the last type of strategy could be alteration of a transcription factor. Obviously, transcription factors are very efficient tools that are directly involved in stimulating the expression of several genes. So they could be very efficient for a coordinately, okay, expression of genes. And when you add some specific gene in the genomes, you need to put under specific promoter of these genes in order to have the control of the expression of the gene you want to add in your cells. So by this way, the control could be linked to specific factor, transcriptional factor, or to specific elicitor, depends the type of promoter you can choose. So means that enhancing the accumulation of medicinal or whatever the use of valuable specialized metabolite can be achieved by two ways, or increasing the abundance of this metabolite, this is obvious, but also to increase the metabolic flux, okay, of the particular pathway, meaning that you can stop the other parasite flux, okay, that could be decrease the final metabolite you want. So these are the general strategies, the general idea we can decide before to enter in an engineering process. So what are the genetic techniques that are used to do exactly what I said? So this technique involve two types of way. The first one is increasing the gene expression of, for example, a step of your metabolic pathway. So means you can target catalyzed enzymes, but you can have also, you will see, to knock out, okay, or to decrease the expression of a specific gene. So we will see both of the two strategies. The first method, okay, of this genetic engineering technique is based on modulation of the endogenous expression of crucial enzymes. And in fact, you can see that the main target can be directly the enzyme of which the activity has been well characterized in the metabolic pathway, such as methylation, condensation, isomerization. That could be very important enzymes at a crucial point of the metabolic pathway. So that could be a good target, okay, for modulating metabolite production. And one of the idea we can have is to enhance, okay, to increase this metabolite accumulation, but it can be also interesting to decrease that. A second method, which can be also an alternative strategy, is to introduce external foreigner enzymes that come from another organisms. So, or you manage the natural genes, the natural enzymes of your organisms, for example, or you decide to introduce exogenous genes that encode for enzymes that are normally produced in another type of enzymes, organism. This exogenous or external foreigner enzyme may have exactly the same activity as the endogenous one, but they may have bigger affinity, for example, for the substrate, or they may have a better capacity of catalyzing the reaction. So means that they can increase the flux, okay, of the metabolic pathway. So you can manage all the origin of the genes you want to introduce or to modify, or by using endogenous or exogenous foreigner genes. Okay, this can be this have been demonstrated to efficiently increase lots of time, okay, the metabolic production in a specific plants, and mainly, for example, in plant cells, in cell suspensions. The last and third methods is to overexpress several transcriptional factors, okay, which can be a way to coordinately increase the expression of several enzymes of the same pathway. Instead to act only on one point of the pathway, we can also think to act on a portion of the pathway, and mainly, for example, the hand part of the pathway. So this is a way that is quite interesting to use, with the idea of naturally each gene is sensitive to the same transcriptional factor, which is not always the case in the cell. So perhaps before it is interesting to rebuild also in the cells the metabolic pathway under the control of the same promoter or a common promoter, in order to be sure that when you act by the transcription factor way, okay, you may activate all the genes transcription, but not only one, okay, as it is done in the cell, natural cells. So, it is what I said to you. The other gene modification we aim to do is or to downregulated or to silence subsequent gene expression. In particular, it was what I have tried to introduce to you yesterday when I said when we have execute all the workflow in order to identify new genes that encode the enzyme with the activity was missing in the metabolic pathway. I said the final step is to functionally validate the enzymes that is encoded by the genes. One of the best way to validate this type of gene, instead of producing the recombinant protein and testing the activity of the recombinant protein in an in vitro assay, which is quite classical, but sometimes difficult, depend if we have all the possibility to have all the substrate, which is not always the case. So the other way we can use to validate a function of a gene is to disrupt this function in the plant. So it's or to downregulated or to silence completely these genes inside the plant in order to see what will be the disorder of metabolic production, to have a close correlation between expression or not of the gene and production or not of specific metabolite, for example. The two methodology that refer to this particular type of strategy of silencing are what it is called RNA interference. It was one of the good methodology used several years ago. It is still used now. I will show you what is and we will see some example of application of this type of technology. And the second one that it is really useful as a tool for characterizing specifically some activity is what it is called virus-induced gene silencing or VIGS. Okay, that it is also quite easy to organize in a lab and also to develop for having this type of answer considering the specificity of some gene activity. And at the end, when you have decide strategy and so on, you have to modify the genome. And we have lots of enzymes now that are known to manipulate, to cut, to ligate again, etc. The genes, and specifically the tools that are used for genome editing, which is the big area of this type of technology, are based on the use of specific endonucleases. Endonucleases are enzymes that are able to recognize a specific sequence of DNA and cut directly this sequence. So some are quite general, some are very specific, some are alone, some are in complex, and depend of how these endonucleases are functioning, you may have several techniques, okay, that lead to manipulation of the genome, such as meganuclease, then ZNF, TALEN, and also obviously now the CRISPR-Cas9 system, which is the last one that is more, not more efficient, but it is more useful to control where you want to modify, okay, the genome sequence, which was always the question we had for several years when we wanted to add some gene, for example, in the genome. Whatever the classical method we can use, and I will show you some that are also currently used today. Sometimes it is quite difficult to manage where exactly you can add a new genes. So means that it's quite question of hazard, okay, to know where the external gene could be integrated in the genome, which can have some consequence, okay, not desiderate. So it is always a question and a problem for this type of strategy. So I propose you, if you want, to discuss a little bit with the different techniques that lead to plant transformation. Okay, we have exactly two ways. What it is called the indirect method, which are specific for plant system, and on the other side, what it is called the direct method. Both of them are currently used for several applications, so it's nice for you to have an overview of the technologies used for this type of plant modification. And also at the end, the second part will be concerned more how we can modulate expression of several genes, including RNA interference and also VIGS. And I think today we will not have time to see genome editing tomorrow morning. So what are the different type of transformation? Whatever the techniques we can apply, there is in fact two type of transformation that may have not exactly the same objective. One type is what it is called stable transformation. Stable transformation means that the external DNA that we want to add to the plant is completely included in the nuclear genomes of the cells. So this is interesting because by this way, these external genes can become like a natural one, and it can be transmitted to the future generations. So you may have a long way to produce a transgenic plant, but these transgenic plants will be able to transmit to the next generation this gene modification. So it's quite interesting. And in particular, this type of strategy are used to conduct long-term genetic study of the influence of several genes, for example. It's also a way to give new traits, okay, to a plant that could concern a metabolic pathway, but also whatever other type of character, such as resistance, for example, for several diseases, several pathogenesis, or also several abiotic stress. It can be whatever you want, depending of the possibility to know the genes that could be responsible of this character. It can be also not only one gene, but it can be more than one gene that can be introduced also in this type of organisms. And I will discuss with you one of the most known, perhaps, example known of this that act on metabolic pathway is the example of golden rice. Perhaps you know that very well. So just to see an example. But there is also possibility to make some transient transformation. Transient transformation are methods that temporarily introduce some external DNA into a plant cell. But this introduction is not directly in the genome of the plant cell, so there is not a real modification of this genome. So means that this DNA stay in the cell independent from the genomes. Mainly it stay under plasmid form, okay? And this plasmid can also be converted in order to permit the expression of the transgene. What it is, the external gene is also called transgene, okay? And in order to have at one moment in one part of the plant, for example, expression of this gene in order to see, for example, the functionality of the gene. And this also temporary expression could be very important, depend obviously here of the promoter you have used for this expression. And it is ideal, it is an ideal technique to study the function of the gene without having necessity to produce some transgenic plant. The difference between both of the two methodology, it's the time. You need several months, sometimes years, to obtain good transgenic plants, but you need only some hours, okay, to have transient expression of some gene by several methods that could permit to have quickly an answer of how your genes, for example, you are working on in code, and what is this role, and so on and so on. So that two different type of objective, but they can be based on several common methodology, but they have also some particularity. But the idea is not to have exactly the same aim. Okay. So I will present you several type of these two type of transformation. If we, to finish off this generality, there is obviously some advantage on both, what it is stable or transient, okay, methodology, and some disadvantage. The advantage of the stable one is that you can really create new variety of plants, new lines of plants, okay, by these approaches. You can target the gene is inherited. It is what I said. New generation may conserve it. You have, if it is some metabolic pathway that are targeted, you can introduce the new ability of a plant to produce specific metabolites that are not naturally produced by these plants. So that could be also interesting. This was mainly used for primary metabolites. metabolisms in order to increase, for example, food propriety and also in quality of seeds, for example, or quality of legumes or vegetables, depend of the plant that has been targeted. But there is so that in this case, we can assimilate plants as biofactories, perhaps not only at the scale of one cell, but it can concern also the complete organisms. And in particular, I will show you the possibility to produce some proteins that can be used as vaccines after, and plants are very well organisms to produce this type of proteins. Here, but it is more by transient strategy. I will show you that. And the only disadvantage we can have is the time. It's really time consuming to have this type of plants. On the other hand, the advantage of the transient strategy is a fast method. Okay, it can easily be scaled up for commercial use. That is very interesting because, in fact, this type of methodology has been completely transferred at an industrial level to produce in a short time a very amount quantity, in particular of recombinant proteins. That can be also now transferred for metabolic production too. So means that, in fact, there is now very good example of what can be done at a very, very high level of production. Okay, this is what I said. They can produce recombinant protein. It can be used also, and this is in part what it is done in VIGs, for example, to target the silencing of specific genes. That could be also useful for functional determination. The disadvantage is that, in fact, there is a very big variability of transformation efficiency. So means you need to generate a lot of number of transiently modified plants in order to have some that are in the best condition for your study. Okay. But as it is fast, it's not a problem. Okay. You need to have more in order to have at least one or several that could answer to your question. So what is the best method used for making some plant transformation, but stable plant transformation? It's quite easy because it exists at the natural level. I suppose that all of you have already heard about Agrobacterium tumefaciens or Rhizogenes. So I want just to rapidly check with you several properties that can be used after independently of this bacteria, okay, for developing several other methods. So both of these two agrobacteria come from the soil. They are gram-negative bacteria. They are mainly found, okay, in the rhizosphere of the plants. What happens is that when these bacteria are able to penetrate or to enter in the plant, okay, they can cause specific symptom, okay, or disease known as a Cronwell, for example, Crongal, for example, for Agrobacterium tumefaciens, and hairy root. You have already heard about hairy root. Yesterday, during your segment, you have spoke about it too. Okay, it is due to the activity of this special Agrobacterium rhizogenes that can induce production of exogenous hairy root or roots on organs on which it's not normal to have this type of new roots. This is interesting because, in fact, we know now exactly the process how these two types of agrobacteria can be stimulated and can act, okay, on the plant. All the mechanistic and molecular process is quite well known and completely deciphered several years ago. Why do these two type of agrobacterium are able to make this transformation, genetic transformation of the targeted plant? It is because they contains in their cytosol not only a chromosome with several genes for their own growth and different other activity, but they contain also a plasmid that it is named TI for tumor-inducing in case of tumefaciens, and RI to significant root-inducing in case of rhizogenes. Both of these two plasmids possess a specific portion, of DNA that it is called tDNA, T for transfer DNA, that are exactly the sequence region that can be transferred from the bacterial to the plant, genome system. So means that these two bacteria are naturally able to make some engineered transformation of plant genomes. This is the only example in all the kingdoms. So this is very interesting. And the only targets of this type of bacteria are plants. So this methodology is specific for transforming plants, and it can be used, for example, to transform mammalian cells or animal cells, for example. So we are lucky to have this type of tools to manage this type of cell transformation. So that it is the natural systems, how it functions. It's quite easy. Plants is initially modified by some injury, for example, by herbivores that come to eat them. It can be also climatic conditions. So whatever the type of sickness, they may have some perturbation. So by this way, they stimulate production of specific metabolite compounds, such as mainly some phenolic compounds. You know now very well that they are involved in this type of answer. And there is a specific family of metabolite compounds such as acetosyrengon that are produced in leaf, for example, and they are assigned to the root system and they are exudate in the rhizosphere. And what happens with that is that this molecule can be recognized by some colony of bacteria, including Agrobacterium, because they have some specific receptor on their cell membrane. And when they are in contact with this signal, they understand that these plants have some problem and it's possibility for them to enter, in the plant. So it stimulates the entrance of this bacteria inside the plant until a specific position between root and stems and leaf. And what we can observe, this is possibly to observe the symptom, is the formation of a specific callus, exactly at the same way that it is produced in vitro system. Means that in fact, these bacteria are able to disorganize the ability of the controlled division of the cell, plant cells, and they induce proliferation, artificial proliferation of the plant cell on the plant. That is interesting. And the second point that is really clever, if we look at this by the just the natural view, is that in fact these new plant cells are able to acquire a new metabolic pathway. And this new metabolic pathway leads to the production of specific compounds named opins that are the favorite food for the bacteria. So it means that the plants will become some factories for the bacteria to produce these new compounds that are diffused from the roots in the soils in order to give food, to all the rest of the colony that is in the soil. So means that here you see there is two different activity of this, two different consequence of this infection by this particular bacteria is one is to manage the cell proliferation, plant cell proliferation, but this plant cell proliferation is also linked with their new ability to produce new molecules. So this is exactly what we would like to reproduce, okay, when we use this system, for example, with a known and completely controlled bacteria, obviously. So now it was gradually demonstrated that this process of comportment is closely linked to the transfer of genetic information from the tDNA part of the plasmid, bacterial plasmid, to the genome of the plants. So this is interesting because it's the only way for the bacteria to make some diversion of the natural metabolisms, for example, of the plant. So how we can take advantage of this, and we will see that immediately. Just a slide to show that it is exactly the same for Rhizogenes. The only difference is that it is not a callus that it is produced. It's specific organs, entire organs such as hairy root. The particularity of hairy root, if you compare that type of root with a wild type root, is that when you take them and if you put them in vitro culture, they are able to proliferate exactly as a callus, okay, because they acquire they acquire the ability to divide continuously. But here it's with some differentiation because it leads to different tissue that organize, okay, a hairy root. That could be also very interesting to take in account in case of producing some hairy roots for specific metabolic pathway that need, okay, several type of tissue to be completed. Not only plant cells or callus can do all. Okay, so what are the particularity of this plasmid? The plasmid, I will focus now my attention mainly on Agrobacterium tumefaciens because it is one of the most used bacteria. This plasmid is always the same size, have always the same size, about 200 kilobase. You have this part, the tDNA, okay, that it always have exactly the same size too, between 20 to 23 kilobase, okay. And in this tDNA, you can find lots of specific region, and we gave details after. But outside this tDNA, there is also very important type of gene. In particular, you can find these genes. What in the particular, it's like a cluster. Okay, all of the genes are clustered in these virulence regions, and if we make it in detail, you can see that these genes that are named VIR A, B, C, D, and so on, okay, are now well known. They encode for specific proteins that are involved in the process of the transferring bacterial DNA to the plant DNA. So they are very important. It is their expression that lead to the transformation, okay, of the plant cells. You can find also here some other type of sequence that are important. Origin of replication also, it's a way to maintain the number of plasmid copy, okay, in the cell, but also in the new bacteria. And you have these particular genes that encode some enzymes that are able to catabolize the opin. Means that, in fact, on the plasmid, you may have here, okay, ability to produce specific enzymes that are able to digest opins that bacteria can find in their environments. Okay, and what it is interesting is that the genes that are able to encode production of this opin are also on the plasmid, but in the part of the DNA that it is normally transferred to the plant. This is why, in fact, the bacteria could manage both the two systems to transform a plant cell in order to produce specific metabolite and also to be able to produce some enzymes that recognize these metabolites to be efficient as food. Okay, so it's a very, very, very nice system that have inspired us for several type of application, for example. So I suppose that this was known by a large part of you, but it's always interesting to recover different aspects. So the tDNA region is a very important one, obviously for the wild type of bacteria, but it is our tool for biotechnology process. And because, in fact, this, I don't know if I have more. Okay, yes. I have more information. This tDNA region is easy to recognize on the plasmid because this region is delimited by two right and left borders. They are palindromic sequences, meaning they can be mirror of one of the others. They are very short, very well known too. And it is important because it is at this border that occur okay, to make some copy of this tDNA before they were sent to the plant cell's nucleus and integrated in the nucleus. There is not, the plasmid is not cut, okay? It remains completely normal. It is only some copy that are produced by the bacterial cells and that are sent, okay, to the plant cell during the process of the transformation. And what they are the other genes that are also in this tDNA? I have already spoke about the OPIN genes, okay, that it is a cluster of a metabolic pathway leading to production of this specific metabolite. But there is also two other clusters of genes that encode two types of phytohormones. It's quite interesting for evolution point of view, to see that in this bacteria, they have acquired some plant genes that encode, okay, for enzyme responsible of producing specific phytohormones. So it's very interesting to follow for that. Okay. All of these genes encoding auxin, cytokinin, opin are essential for the life of the bacteria when she is in the rhizosphere and in the soil. So that is very interesting because what can we do is that we can substitute all of the parts of these genomes, plastid genomes, by other type of gene with just the idea to maintain, okay, the size of this tDNA. So that could be the way to produce some transgenics plant cell lines. So here is a summary of this particular part of the tDNA, with the three type of cluster, auxin, cytokinin, and also opin. And what we can do is to completely change, okay, this particular sequence by substituting both of these three clusters by other type of genes. For example, we can insert a gene of interest that's encode, for example, an enzyme of a metabolic pathway or transcriptional factor, whatever you want, okay? This gene of interest need to be controlled by a promoter. Sometimes it is better to use what we call the constitutive promoter, means that when whatever the situation, this gene will be expressed, yes, exactly. Or you can also use some specific inducible promoter, means that you can choose a moment of which you wanted this gene will be expressed, and particularly when it will be transferred in the plant cell's genome, for example. And obviously, there is also a terminator that permit to have a nice and complete expression, okay, of the transgene, the gene of interest. And you see here in this type of construction, we need also to insert several genes for the different step of selection. Means that we have some markers, some genes that encode a specific activity that could be easy, okay, to detect, to establish specific screening to select primarily bacteria that have been insert this type of construct, but also at the end, the plant set that have acquired this type of transgenes. Okay, so when you have built this, you can do that in tube, okay? You have all the enzymes that are able to cut, to leak, okay? You do what you want, it's like cooking, okay? But you can't see nothing. You need just to be confident in you, okay, for several steps, but you have some way to control by PCR, for example, in order to be sure to have exactly the good sequence. And when you have done that, you have to insert this by substitution at the place where the natural tDNA was, okay? By this way, you can construct what we call recombinant TE plasmid, because it is not the natural one, it is an artificial one that includes specifically our transgene. So when you have this, after, it's quite easy. You put this recombinant plasmid, here are the steps I have already explained you. You put this recombinant plasmid into Agrobacterium tumefaciens that become exactly at this moment a transformed Agrobacterium tumefaciens cells, okay, because the plasmid is not the natural one. And after, you have just to make a sort of meeting between this bacteria and some piece of the plants you want to transform. This is why it is important at this stage to manage all the in vitro culture methodology. They are very linked, closely linked, okay, to all of the steps that include production of transgenic plants. So you make some co-cultivation with both of two partners, Agrobacterium tumefaciens and some piece of leaf, some piece of roots, depend if you want, some explant of your targeted plant. You wait for some times, not so many, okay, but after you have to wash your explant, you have to avoid the agrobacteria by putting in the medium some antibiotic for which the bacteria, even the transformed bacteria, is sensitive. So by this way, you can eliminate all the bacteria, and you let your piece of leaf, okay, producing some callus, okay, and in this callus, you may have integration of the tDNA in the cells, okay, that are the original that lead to the production of this callus. And from this callus, you can induce regeneration of plants. You have perhaps explained this, not. Okay, so but we can do that in a in vitro culture, which is very fascinating methodology, because you can only by working with the ratio of the different phytohormones, mainly cytokinin and also auxin, you can induce organogenesis that could be only areal part, but also it could be areal with root parts. It can be also embryo, what it is called the somatic embryo, for example. So you can do lots of things from this callus. And one cell will be able to produce one plant. So means that if your cell have been transformed, you can produce a plant that it is entirely transformed. Means all the cells of the plant, from the root, from the stem, from the leaf, or have acquired the modification, okay, of the genome you wanted to enter. This is a real genetic modified organisms, not a chimera. Okay, so, and this is what we want to obtain. So here, for some are interested by, it is exactly the sequence of how this agrobacterium can lead to the transfer of a copy of tDNA to the nucleus, involving the different Vir protein that act at all the steps of this natural process of plant cell transformation. So this is a way to obtain the transgenic plants. Is it okay for you? Do you have any question, any comments? Yeah.
Now you mentioned that the plasmid in acrobatic mutations also have the ovine synthesis region within the left to the right borders.
Yeah.
And the plants are also capable of producing vines which can be consumed by the agrobacterium.
Now, only the agrobacterium is able to recognize this specific part because there is some specific enzymes that link, okay, with this left or right border, and they are endonuclease, and so they are able or to cut, or it is some enzymes that accept also polymerase that are able to copy the cDNA. So they are very important for the beginning of how to manage this cDNA before it will be transferred to the genome plant.
Do the plants have the possibility to kind of find for agrobacterium?
No, they don't have this type of borders. Only in the Agrobacteria plasmid.
And structurally, what are ovine? I mean, what are they?
It's amino acid with a sugar. The structure of the opins is an amino acid with a sugar, and there is a large variety of opins. So means that in fact the genes that encode for opins are not the same for every bacteria. Okay, so this is why they may be very specialized metabolisms that lead to production of specific opins that can be recognized only by the bacterial community, but not by the others. Okay, so it's a very fine system. Okay, so what are the applications we can do? So I have taken this example of golden rice. Do someone is able to explain me what is the aim of this rice? Because you have said yes, I know. So
Enhanced production of vitamin K within the rice.
yes, the idea was to produce precursor of vitamin A, not the vitamin A by itself. And why? To overcome vitamin A deficiency, that it is a real problem in several parts of the world. And in fact, the idea was to manage possibility to transform a food as a pharmaceutical. It is what we call alicament or pharmaceutical food. So it was a project. Do you know when it was start? It is a long time now. 1998, 7 about, okay. And now we are at least a five generation of this golden rice. So here I will just focus my attention on the primary production, but you need to know that now this golden rice is becoming a sort of models on which we can manage several type of transformation methods in order to improve them and also to add several genes. At least now the last generation have not only 4 genes added, but quite 20. So it, and particularly because they act not only on the pathway that was firstly targeted, but also on the other pathway in order to increase, largely the amount of carotene, because the objective is produce some beta carotene, in these plants. So the idea was exactly what you said, means that it was to introduce a way to to make some precursor of vitamin A that it is important for the safe, okay, of human bodies. The two researchers that originate of this project was Ingo Potricius and Peter Bayer. Ingo is always alive. He's working in Switzerland and he's always making different projects around this type of objective. So the idea was, it's quite now familiar for you, okay, a metabolic pathway, in particular the terpene metabolic pathway, that it is initiated here, whatever MEV or MEP pathway, but the idea is to produce these two isomers, IPP and DMAPP. And in the seed rice, okay, in the particular tissue of the seed rice, this part of the pathway is okay, in the wild type, right? So you can produce several diterpene precursors such as geranyl diphosphate. But in the rice, this precursor is used for several other production of other diterpene or polyterpene. So the idea was to introduce in the rice, and particularly in the tissue, in the rice globally, and also to be sure that in the tissue of the seed, this new part of the pathway will be expressed in order to produce carotene, in particular beta-carotene, okay, in the seeds, which is not possible in the wild type rice. So the idea was to try to find the genes that are responsible from the conversion of GPP to beta-carotene. And in fact, it is a quite short metabolic pathway, but you need only 4 steps. The first one is catalyzed by what it is known as phytoN synthase that lead to production of phytoN. And after this phytoN is managed by a phytoN desaturase and after a beta or delta eta carotene desaturase, with these two enzymes are able, okay, to produce these several steps leading to the lycopene. And lycopene can be taken charge by the lycopene alpha beta cyclase in order to make cyclization of 2 rings at both extremity of the polyterpene, in order to produce the 2 isomers of carotene, beta and alpha carotene. That is the short pathway that is missing in rice seed to produce specifically this metabolite. So the idea was to introduce, okay, phytoN synthase, phytoN synthase, phytoN desaturase, and this activity too, and lycopene cyclase. What it is interesting is that in fact, they have not tried to find endogenous genes that from rice that encode these specific activities. They have taken a look of other plants or other organisms. In this case, it was cats.
Was from carrots.
Ah, no, it was not from carrots. It was from a flower, dolphins. Okay, sorry, you see, sometimes I have some difficulty with your actions. It's not.
Can you pick those carrots?
No, it is not carrots. It was. I will show you which plant was. So means that in fact they have found some other organisms that are able to produce large amount of carotene, of carotenoid in general. So they have chosen to introduce in rice exogenous foreigner DNA that encode of this enzyme that come from other organisms. And the idea was to make a biosynthetic complementation, okay, of this pathway.